let's talk about cultural appropriation, and let's dig into it a little bit more. Let's talk about sort of intra-cultural appropriation. So let's look at the appropriation potentially, whether or not it exists. And this is basically what the question is: can you appropriate from a culture? So I wrote an article a couple of weeks ago, and in that I remember putting something in there that says black people are not a monolith, right? We are diverse and we are whatever. So when we talk about appropriation intraculturally, I'm going to label us as a monolith, right? Black people, all black people, Afro-Caribbean, whatever. So let's use the example of a Caribbean restaurant and appropriation, and let's say it's an African person that is got the Caribbean restaurant. Does that count as appropriation? Do they have a responsibility to the Caribbeans? Do we get that nuanced within our view of? And remember, this is a safe space. Let the glass off.
It's a difficult one because I put myself in the shoes of a consumer. If I knew that an African restaurant was doing jerk chicken, am I more likely to go to them or just, Caribbean restaurant? Personally, I'm more likely to go to a Caribbean restaurant because I want to give back to you Caribbean people that are the, you know your cuisine, left, right, and centre. African people continue to cook jollof, continue to cook what you know and do it well. I can tell you, my husband's Jamaican, I'm Ghanaian, and I know how to cook Caribbean food because I've been taught, but I've been taught by a Jamaican. So before my husband was in the picture, I was taught by a Jamaican. And I believe that I want to put that back into their community. I'm not going to benefit off of it because you guys know what you're doing. You do it best. Now, if you tell me about cooking jollof, right, I know how to obviously cook African food as well. But I don't believe that we should say that, okay, the Ghanaian person isn't allowed to cook Italian food. You can cook Italian food, but if for example, if a Ghanaian person opened up an Italian restaurant, would you guys go there? Or would you want to go to an authentic Italian restaurant?
So I think for me, in my mind, I would want to go to the authentic Italian restaurant.
But why?
Because I like that authenticity. I want it to feel Italian. I want everything. I want to know that it's come from Italian hands and they know what they're doing. So for me, to your question, my answer is the responsibility is still there. So what I'm not saying is that an African person can open up a Jamaican restaurant. Of course they can. But do they have a responsibility to give back in some way, shape or form? In my view, absolutely. Okay. Yes. And I think we need to give context what we mean giving back. I don't mean you have to contribute £10,000 a year to the black community. It could be as small as, you know what, I understand I'm operating a Jamaican business. Therefore, as part of my workforce, I will ensure that I have Jamaican people within my workforce. So I have that cultural influence to everything that I'm doing. So as much as I might understand the culture myself, I acknowledge I'm not Jamaican. And I want to be as authentic as I can be. So I'm going to give back in that way by ensuring that I have some... It could be as small as that, in my view.
Let's go back to the example that we were discussing earlier on when you were talking about the two white gentlemen who jerk chicken. And let's use that. Let's say you found out that both of those gentlemen were raised from the age of 2 to the age of 30 in Jamaica. Does that change your perception on the idea of potential appropriation?
You're really going complex with these things.
Come on, I like that.
It may do. So we know that there are, for example, comedians out there that are white Jamaicans.
Yeah.
But they're still authentic because they are born and raised in Jamaica and they consider themselves to be Jamaicans, and we wouldn't take that away from them. So yeah, it may change my perception if they were a white Jamaican, for example. But a lot of these organisations in the UK, they're not white Jamaicans. Yeah. They are brought up in Guernsey.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They are brought up in areas where you have to really question. So you must have just gone on the internet, or you've gone to Montego Bay on a holiday, and then all of a sudden thought,
chicken was nice.
That was beautiful, and you brought it back, and you have appropriated the cuisine to benefit from it. And it's not just the chicken or the rice that you're appropriating. You're appropriating culture because you put on a bit of, reggae, a bit of Bob Marley in the background. You'd use bright colours. You would use all of the things associated with black culture, And therefore, at that point that you're doing that, yes, you do have a responsibility. To your point, Jaz, whether it's employing staff, whether it's giving props where props are due, whether it's giving back to the community through a charitable organisation, I don't know, but you have some responsibility to do that.
So let's talk about it in the other way around. Let's get a little bit more controversial here. Is it possible that if Kunle, that works in accounts, like described earlier on, decides he's going to open, I don't know, a fish and chip shop or something, does that count as appropriation?
So for me, this is less about like race explicitly.
Okay.
So, to both examples. So you're white people that have grown up in Jamaica, for example, since they were 2. They're Jamaican as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So if Kunle is born in the UK, he's also British. So there's the generational element to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he might go through the generational route.
Yeah.
And his parents might be Nigerian or Ghanaian, and he
Yeah.
might take that route. But he's also British. He
Sure,
spent his whole life in
sure.
Britain. So this is not about whether you're black or white. Can you make black food or white food or
Yeah.
Asian food? This is more about culture.
Sure.
Yes.
And is it authentic to the culture that you were raised in and brought up in, and you're profiting of something completely different, or something that's actually a part of who you are?
Okay, understood. I've got a slightly more controversial perspective on many different things, and this is sort of my underworking assumption for many different things. It may be controversial, but like I said to you, it's a safe space. White people will be fine. This is just my general. They've been here. They've been creating generational wealth. We look at all the numbers. You're the man for the numbers. We look at generational wealth and the statistics and opportunities, and they will be fine. And for that reason, I feel like when I see white businesses appropriating, I feel my response is much more visceral than even if somebody had come from Ghana at the age of 30 and at 34 they decide to start making fish and chips. Well, the British culture is not theirs, right? They're Ghanaian.
Sure.
But I feel less strongly about that than I do about white people appropriating black culture, because I just feel as though, like I said, white people can be like, you don't need to do it. You've got so many of your own opportunities. Like if you're going to do it, then you absolutely have to give credit and make sure that you're giving back in some way, shape, or form, and that has to be transparent. Like we sort of need to know why, because I just feel like you've got so much stuff already. Like
You don't need it.
can we have something, please? And I know that's maybe not a popular opinion, and it is a bit tongue in cheek, but actually, I genuinely believe that there has to be a lane for us to operate. There has to be a lane for us to.
I think you're totally you've hit the nail on the head. They have, and we've spoken about generational wealth. They have it. But what you'll find, a lot of white people say, well, I don't have white privilege because, I'm working class, or, I live in a 1-bedroom flat. You have privilege just because of the colour of your skin, and that's what we need to understand. And with that privilege comes, for example, as a black business setting up, white businesses are more likely to be able to secure loans, grants, all of the above, because the system is set up for them. Right, so when they've already got that upper hand and that opportunity to be able to let their businesses flourish and succeed. As black people, we're starting from scratch. So a lot of black people, also in terms of having good credit, having good jobs that the banks will be able to loan to them. There are a lot of issues there already because we don't have the steps. We haven't had any form of inheritance from our grandma that's passed away, or all of these types of things. So if we talk about have they got the upper hand already? Can they try and find something else? I agree with you. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. Because you can go into an interview now, and just by the colour of your skin, you're more likely to get it than Kunle, who has the name Kunle, or Annette, who has the dark skin.
Yeah. So I've got another question for you. Well, maybe not a question, maybe a statement. I know you've got something that you want to, and I'm nervous about what it is you're going to ask, which is why I want. But would you agree with the fact that it is easier for a white person to appropriate black culture and be successful than it is the opposite way around? So it's much more difficult for Kunle to open an Italian restaurant and be successful than it is for Darren to open a jollof rice restaurant and be successful. Would you agree with that, or would you disagree with that?
It's a really, really interesting question. I think if I just go without overthinking it, I would say yes. But it's a very, very interesting question, because in terms of my validation for that answer, I'm not sure. That I'm just firing.
Firing from
Almost.
the hip,
Like
yeah.
I just feel like that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a feeling more than like something that's been
Based on numbers, which is what you
analysed
do.
and assessed.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is why I'm right. But I would say yes. Whether that's due to sort of being in the would it be the same in Ghana, for example?
Yeah.
So whether is it because we're in UK predominantly white country. So ultimately, to some of your points before around investment, all those elements, so it can maybe get a better start, and then culturally and community wise, actually, like if you're looking at community support,
Yeah.
80% of the community is yours anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Good job,
So,
Darren.
like,
You
yeah.
got the chicken.
absolutely. So,
And
so maybe there's
I
some
guess that white community is more likely to support you and say, oh, you know, I don't know, Bob has just opened this, let's all support that individual. But sometimes when they don't know the cuisine or you don't understand black culture, there might be a little bit of hesitance in doing it. And again, safe space. A lot of our food has spice in it.
Yeah.
So we cut out a big proportion of a lot of Caucasian people because, you know, even black pepper sometimes is a bit much. It's not me being shady, but I'm being serious.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna look at the menu and think, oh, is that got a bit of spice now? You know. It's little bits like that, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
So it's the support that you get when you're opening up a business, and I believe a lot of white-owned businesses have that support from the onset, and there's no questions asked about cuisine, whether they're going to like it, whether they're not going to like it. With black businesses, there's more likely to be a few question marks and just, you know, gathering their knowledge about the cuisine.
Yeah. So I want to go back to your question or your point before around kind of white people will be okay.
Yeah.
And at a broad level, like at a high level, I agree. But I want to pose this question to you. So if Dean grew up in Jamaica, came to the UK at 30, and to your point, he's got better opportunity to get investments, loans, etc., and wants to set up a Jamaican business. He understands that actually culturally he feels Jamaican, but he wants to support the Jamaican community. So one of the things we're talking about is there a responsibility to give back? So Dean sets up his business because he can get the loans, great, he can get the facilities, but I'm going to have a completely Jamaican staff. Are we okay with that comparatively, or should he be leaving that space and saying, do you know what?
It's not mine.
It's not mine. It's not mine to give.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Setting up a business is not for everybody, right? There's a certain, I mean, you'll know better than anybody. There's a certain hunger, there's a certain mentality, there's a certain persistence, there's a certain not willingness to take them. And I feel like whoever is prepared to jump through those hoops absolutely deserves to benefit. And so I don't think there's any reason for us to say that anybody needs to leave any space if that's where they've been successful. I think the example of Dean, what you've given, is the perfect example of what I would love to see. I have no issue with who decides to start a business and how they, but what I do have an issue with is the equity and distribution of subsequent wealth. And opportunity that comes off the back of that. And so if Dean is doing a good job, then absolutely let Dean hire his Jamaican staff and let all of the Jamaicans prosper off of what is effectively their culture. If they're all, you know, Dean included, they're all Jamaican and they're all benefiting, I have no issue with that.
And what if Dean is still Dean but he's British? Different view or the same?
Still the same view.
Still the same.
I have the same view. I
agree. Anyone can set up any business that they want to. It's about what happens once you're there. I think what we're trying to say is that setting up a business, some people, and when, you know, referencing white people, have an upper hand. So I remember reading, and we all probably know this, with Donald Trump. He said, "Oh, my dad, you know, gave me a small loan of, I can't remember how
$1 million.
much, something ridiculous. What? Small loan." And that is what we're talking about. Is, you know, there are different demographics in our society that already are able to create generational wealth, because my dad's given me a small loan of £1 million. And so for those who actually, it's going to take me time to pay off a loan, or I really need to work hard just to not be in negative equity for this business, you should be giving back somehow. Whether it's, I've seen like a lot of businesses, black businesses, not white actually, setting up like GoFundMe grants to help other black businesses. And getting the community to say, right, Jaz, put in £20, put in £50, and then we're going to help the black community. There should be something like that within white-owned businesses. I don't care if you're a Google or you're a Facebook or you're just a really good family-run business. you should be wanting to make your communities thrive.